The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Robotic Process Automation, a Pathway to Freedom and Sustainable Growth. There's so much energy for this webinar here today, and Encoursa is so glad to bring together Sage and Real Impact Solution for this webinar. My name is Liz Brigson. I will be your host today. Let's review our housekeeping items, and then we'll get rolling with introductions. So first of all, to get the most out of this presentation, you'll want to utilize the GoToWebinar questions pane for live interaction. If you've had a chance to join us before, then you know exactly how to do that. You can head on out to the questions box and let us know where you're joining from. If you're brand new, then go ahead and navigate to your GoToWebinar control panel. You can find the questions drop down. Go ahead out there and just let us know how you heard about this webinar today. So we are so excited you're here. We will be monitoring the questions box throughout the webinar, and we'll be interacting with you, taking your questions both live and then also in that questions box. So welcome everyone, thank you so much. I would also like to direct your attention to the handouts pane within the GoToWebinar control panel. The slides for the presentation today are available for you right from the handouts dropout. So definitely I know you'll want to save those for future reference. There will be 4 polling questions during the webinar today. If you would like to earn continuing professional education credit, you'll want to respond to at least 3 of those 4 polling questions. Today's webinar is 1 hour, so you can earn 1 CPE credit for the presentation today. If you do qualify for credit, your certificate will be available for you to download from your Encoursa dashboard 1 hour after the conclusion of the event. And even if you're not here for CPE, we would still love for you to respond and engage with those poll questions. It's fun and it's helpful for us to understand your perspective. If you have any questions about today's webinar, please contact us. You can contact us at support@encoursa.com. We are also on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn, so feel free to head out onto LinkedIn and connect with me. And again, we're so happy that you are here. It is my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce to you these 4 fine gentlemen who are making today's event possible. First, we have Rafael Casas. Rafael is a senior accountant advocate with Sage. Rafael really is the one who have brought us all together. We'll tell you a little bit more about how this came to be when we paused for that first poll question break. But Rafael really has just a wonderful experience and background for technology, and also a heart for bringing people together and serving accountants. So it's so good to have Rafael with us here today. And the other 3 gentlemen are part of the team at Real Impact Solution. They are all about optimizing business processes and automating business processes. So we have Sydney Jones, who is the CEO and co-founder of Real Impact Solution, Wilton Rogers, who is the COO and also co-founder, and Rob House, CMO and co-founder. We also have Alex from the Real Impact Solution team with us as well. And gentlemen, we are so thrilled to have you here with us today. So we're going to go ahead and just take our first poll question, and then we'll turn things over to Rafael for the first segment of the presentation today. Poll question 1 is up on your screen. The question is, how familiar are you with robotics process automation, RPA? So we're just super interested to hear from you about your level of background with this topic. And while we're waiting for your responses to come in, Rafael, you want to talk a little bit about, you and I connected on LinkedIn and you sent me some resources. You want to just tell us a little bit more about your vision for bringing together accountants and providing education?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Liz. Something that where we initially found each other on LinkedIn was I was at attending Digital CPA in Seattle, and I was going through an RPA seminar, CAS seminars, and he posted some of the thought leadership information surrounding that and how it's really impactful to the community, as well as the education of all of these areas that are very much impacting the accounting community each and every day, and not only now, but for the next 5 years and 10 years. And so part of the Sage Accounts Network and the Sage Account Solutions team that I work with, we're looking to build a proper ecosystem for education, for automation, as well as practice management and digital marketing, SEO, and all of that. The glue of all that puts all that together is education, and that's where we were able to bring these teams together with RIS and Encoursa, and I think everything for progressing starts with the education point. So, it's like really exciting to be able to do this, and one of many more that we'll be able to do and serve the community.
Well, thank you so much for being so proactive and connecting us all to make this happen here today. We're going to go ahead and close that poll down. We'll take a quick look at the results. Those results should be up on your screen. And it looks like about 10% of you are very familiar and you're actually already running one or more processes with automation. So that is so exciting. And as we go, we'd love to hear from you about how that experience has been so far. And then no surprise, just over half of you are either somewhat familiar or generally familiar. And I think that's where most of us fall, right? We're either interested in implementing RPA because we know it can help us, but we don't know how, or we, similar to me, before I got connected with these gentlemen, I knew that RPA was a trending topic, but I wanted to know more about what that meant for accountants. And then a third of you are actually like here because this is a completely new topic. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to go ahead and put away the poll results. Raphael, I'm going to share the presenter controls with you, and you can take us away with this next segment. Perfect. We're looking at your screen in presenter mode.
Okay, awesome, perfect. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Raphael Casas, the Senior Accountant Advocate for the Sage Accounting Solutions, and we'll be talking about RPA, robotic process automation. So let's make sure here the slide's moving. So some of the objectives in this initial first half is we're going to talk about what is RPA and what are the benefits of RPA, what are the possible drawbacks of RPA, and some business processes for RPA and how those can be implemented internally and externally. And then lastly, we'll look at some best practices for RPA implementation, which is all very much incredibly important. So we're going to kick it off here on what is RPA. And RPA, as you look on this slide, it's going to be really based around words that you've heard before: bots, robots, digital workers. It's an application of technology that allows employees in a company to configure software bots or robots. Now, many of you have probably heard of the word macros or have worked with macros in the past. It's very similar. I always like to call it macros on steroids. It's much more sophisticated. There's a lot more that you can do with that. A bot can capture and interpret existing data, existing applications for processing, transaction, manipulating data, triggering responses, communicating with other digital systems, just like a normal person would. And these are very important because RPA consists of more than just its own software package. There's areas within AI and as well as within data analysis that's very important in OCR technology that brings it all together. And RPA is really best suited for rule-based defined processes and structured data sets. So the next generation of RPA is to leverage unstructured data and perform machine learning functions. So that's where you hear terms of things like, again, AI, machine learning, discovery bots, intelligent automation. Those are the next stages and the iterations that are already coming out. But essentially, a bot is going to be something that's going to allow you to, and I'll get into this further, but it's going to allow you to remove those mundane tasks and have a bot do those within a certain based rule set and workflow. So some of the benefits of RPA out of the gate, and we're going to look at the goal of RPA is essentially reducing human intervention for a lot of these mundane tasks, these repetitively structured tasks that you're doing, whether it be for within your firm or externally for your clients. So it's going to be automating a lot of these tasks where you need to be able to define them and allow you to just free up a lot more time where it's not available to you now. RPA software has the ability to complete, again, these tasks while keeping control of your business workflows, your business rules that are essential to you. It enables better data integrity, removing human errors where possible. And a big area is that it's designed to enhance your job and company culture and not by any means replace it. This is a huge area in which I'll get more discussion into. But the overall term, methodology is within any technology. You hear a lot of buzzwords of RPA, AI, blockchain, cryptocurrency. All of these are just amazing vehicles, and there will be a continuous of vehicles of technology that will be available to you each and every day. But if you don't invest in improving your business processes, standardizing those business processes, as well as the leaning process of your culture holistically, any one of these implementations is going to fail. Just the same if you're implementing an accounting system, and this is something that I'll discuss further, but this is the most important piece to making sure that these technologies don't fail when you're implementing into your firms and into your clients. So as I segue into that, we're going to look at some of the possible drawbacks of RPA. And a statistic here of through 2021, 40% of enterprises will have RPA buyer's remorse due to the misaligned, siloed usage and inability to scale. Now, I've been working with quite a few different large firms, and they're investing on working with RPA internally and building out a team to do this outside of working with the vendor. They see the massive value in it, and the clear consensus is that they're seeing that the culture is just as important as the technology. And I've had the pleasure of being able to build and work in RPA from small business all the way to some of the biggest companies in the world. And that is the biggest hurdle that I've always had to overcome. And I spend the most time with the culture and the buy-in in each and every one of these segments. And I'll talk more about those business practices, but it's very, very, very important to keep in mind that you are keeping the culture at and business analysis at the forefront of any of the implementation for RPA. And one of the first things that I'll always look at is the Pareto principle of an 80-20 rule. When I talk about of not replacing the value that people bring as opposed to the bots. The bots are just going to enhance your business and enhance and empower the ability and the value that the people in your firm already bring, because they're incredibly valuable, and sometimes I think they're undervalued. So when you're looking at trying to implement RPA and these technologies, you want to look at the types of information that you want to implement in it, and you want to look at recurring processes, structured data, rule-based activities, things that you'll see in this 80% area, which is master data maintenance, and that could be of the information that's plugged in, master data from items, products, customers, vendors, making sure that data integrity is correct, the input processing, output preparation, the internal control execution, the governance, whether it be from a PO governance to an AP governance to an AR governance. So those are areas, the administrative system operation, those are areas where you have rigid rules, and you want to be able to try to look at those first for building out those these processes, even as a start with an RPA. And I think the most important areas is this 20% of the data integrity that the RPA is allowing you to have with these automations allows for much better analysis and interpretation. So that 20% may be a small percentage, but it's the most valuable. And that's where your value comes from, being able to have better integrity and having that time freed up to allow you to serve your clients much better and have much more time to serve your clients and be true business partners. Some of the business processes that are enhanced from an external point of view from by RPA from your client space are here. There's quite a few of these that you can look at later, but these are some good starting points for you to view from from period end closing to things like intercompany elimination transactions, reporting. your intelligence reporting, having those being automated and going out to your clients. So there's a lot of different areas, along with reconciliation, especially right now. It's being busy season. Tax is one where bots are been heavily implemented in, because that's going to make a really big impact, especially with the smaller consulting firms that have a bulk amount of transactions that need to be automated through bots. And we'll look at one of those use cases here. Speaking of tax, this is a slide that's actually I got from RIS, who will be presenting later in this session. But when you look at use cases for tax, this is a possibility of what a bot can be able to do, of extracting data, doing the reconciliations, the data validations, which is extremely important, the e-filing and document management, the inputting data, formatting data, and generating reports for reconciliation to validate even further what that bot is doing. There's some prominent firms that are working with RIS and working with other vendors that are doing something very similar to this, but they're adding some more complexity to it. So, these are good areas for you to start to look into within the business analysis of your firm of where these would fit in. So digging deeper into a specific use case for tax management, the bots that are being implemented eliminates manual data entry in online tax forms. You can create these bots, again, by mapping the RPA software to scan tax forms and spreadsheets in the database, or extracting online financial data such as balance sheets. Now, an important area is when I say you can create, these are things that you'll get to see deeper into on how to implement, but these are going to be very much created by your business use cases, and as well as your rigid guidelines. So these are very, very much important pieces to look into. And after proper mapping, each field entry is copied from the paper spreadsheet into the online tax forms. The key function of a tax bot is to map the tax entry from the primary data to the database or the user interface. So this means that the RPA software can actually be seen entering data into each text field, and that's very much like what a macro looks like. If you ever use Microsoft GP, and there's other products that have those in-house. And so a very important piece to all of this is the governance of errors. So you don't want to just, for instance, put a bot in and then it's completely working its magic, but then there's a lot of errors and you don't know where that's being flagged or where things can be changed or modified or refined. So within these bots, you'll be able to flag an error if the data source field doesn't match with the tax forms. So an example, if you've set a rule within the bot to make sure that all the values are numeric, but then an alphanumeric value comes in, the tool flags this as an error. It ensures consistency in the data so that it'll meet all tax compliance standards. And the data integrity is very, very important, because you've probably all heard the phrase junk in, junk out. You're only as good as, it doesn't matter what system you're using, if you don't have standardized processes and the data is not good, nothing's going to be good about it. But this particular use case would be good, as I said earlier, for small CPA consulting firms that need to file tax returns in large volumes. And this will very much speed up the tax filing process and ensure the accuracy throughout this process. So that's something that's extremely important as far as the business analysis and proper mapping from the get-go. Now, with that said, I want to go through some of the best practices for RPA implementation. And my background of being in 15 years in the technology space, not only working with small business accountants, but also working with the FP&A teams of building out from the larger enterprise teams where RPA isn't really mentioned. It's just something that needs to be done because you're running 5 million transactions a day. And whether it be small business to enterprise, this same rule sets business analysis and best practices apply. So some things that I want to talk about are, one, first thing you want to do is start analyzing the catalog of business processes that you have in place. So listing them all from the departments or segments of your business internally from a firm, accounting, tax, audit, and then externally you can look at from your quote to cash process, sales distribution from a client point of view, if that's something that you would want to implement on their end. Now, you want to add, once you've listed those out, you want to look at the process metrics, the cost, the risk, the overall impact of the business, and see, and see if those risks outweigh the actual value that it's going to be bringing. The dependency on other processes and technology stacks. This is something that I see that's always has to have a deep, deep layer of business analysis, because you have, for instance, you've got your accounting package and you've got 3 or 4 different integrated solutions in there. You want to make sure that that's not overlapping, that these bots are not causing issues, whether it be through API connections or software development kits that are causing problems. So you want to really look at how this not only affects your processes internally, but also your technology stack, because it could end up causing issues there if you don't really do the analysis correctly. And then you want to really look, once you've got that kind of down and you've looked at all those processes, you want to improve and sanitize those current processes. It's very much a leaning process. So you're streamlining those processes, you're building out standard operating procedures to standardize those processes where you didn't have them before. Going through this process of Agile, you can use the Agile methodology, Six Sigma techniques as an example to help you with value, no value analysis, cross-functional throughout the teams, making sure that you're implementing a bot that maybe affects one segment of the business well, but it has an adverse piece, adverse impact on a different part of it. So you want to really look at the full end-to-end process, and then that's really, really important. And as you're doing that, you're re-engineering the processes and the culture in the business segments that have been analyzed. And I'll talk about a little bit about the culture and what I've done a little bit later in the next slide. But once you've kind of gone through those overall segmentations of documenting, looking at the full business analysis, the end-to-end on how this will work with your stacks and your teams, you want to make sure that you get into speaking with the vendor, or if you're doing this in-house, really have some deep dives on defining the processes where, and the use cases where the RPA is to be implemented. And you want to start small. You want to build out a good proof of concept. You don't want to start out something very complex. You want to be able to start out small, and you want to build from there, because you'll have a lot of UAT, which is user acceptance testing, to make sure that these small proof of concepts work well, and then you can define the scalability of these use cases from a technology, maintenance, and business roadmap. So you may have an RPA bot that you've built out, but as you continue to grow and you look at your roadmap, if we're moving into these countries, we're moving into this type of industry, how are these bots going to affect those use cases that you've built out? So it's important to really keep that in mind, not just from today or from a year from now, but what are you looking to do, and how is this automation going to really affect that growth? Is it going to put you in a box and you're going to have to, re-engineer that whole bot to fit your new business model? So these are the things that you want to look at, and the measurables as well is always incredibly important. The ROI for RPA is long-term. It's not going to be something that's an overnight success, although you will see some immediate value there, but you will definitely want to look at it as a long-term investment. Some of the areas that I have had a lot of deep analysis on and working with RPA is, again, starting small with a pilot within RPA and refining and tuning before you attempt to scale. These are some of the major points. The biggest is the business analysis. Investing in 1 to 2 business analysts to reevaluate and improve the standard operating procedures across all segments. Someone and I don't mean investing in having to go out and invest in a new person to come in. Some of the firms that I've worked with, they've just looked at some of the folks that they already have in their firm and transitioned them over into a business analyst role. Now, this is incredibly important because it's not just a business analysis from a point of view of standard operating procedures, but you want to look for folks that are going to be able to really champion the each segments of the business. Because the biggest thing that happens across all the technology that's being implemented is fear, whether it be an accounting package or new technology that they feel it's going to replace them. It's having being able to have, outside of a project, being able to have to find the key stakeholders from each of those departments, sit down with them one-on-one, and have them understand their business, understand their segment. This is something that I do that's extremely important. I invest a lot of my time on sitting down with the culture, because a lot of the CFOs or controllers are so busy from the day-to-day work, they don't have time to really dig in and understand those different departments and those different segments. And that's extremely important, because they're going to be giving you some really valuable information that those, the upper management hasn't had time to be able to see, and better ideas on how to structure and how to streamline their businesses. And I think to remove that fear, not only education for webinars like this or education from what's already out there, but that's going to help them adopt and be on board, because that's not only going to allow them to be able to serve their customers at a greater value, but they're knowing that this isn't replacing them. This is actually going to allow them to build on the amazing value that they already bring to the firm or their clients. So that's where I want to really hit home on you investing in that piece. Some small things that across all automation is building service accounts. And service accounts is, when you implement an RPA or any type of bot, you want to make sure that you build in those systems a new user account. You can call it RPA or you can call it whatever you wanted, but user account. So that allows you to help within troubleshooting. And if there's SOX compliancy things that you need to look at to make sure who's auditing, who's touching which transactions, that's coming from a third party and not using a generic admin account. So those are very, very important. And then, as I said, defining key stakeholders across each of your business and having them buy in to this, and that allows it to cascade down to their own teams, and it helps for the adoption and the fear base to go away from that and look at the overall value that this brings. And post implementation of looking up at creating steering committees, monthly steering committees, to look at what you've built out as a team from your standard operating procedures and the RPA adoption, because that's going to be something that's going to be having to be maintained constantly. You want to make sure that for errors, for upgrades from other systems, to make sure that the RPA software is being maintained and allowed to scale. So the last thing that I'll leave you with is a quote from Gary Vee. And Gary Vee is actually going to be speaking at Sage Summit in May. But this is something that I think just really hits home and I'm passionate about. The quote is, "You have to understand your own personal DNA. Don't do things because I do them or Steve Jobs or Mark Cuban tried it. You need to know your personal brand and stay true to it." You guys know your businesses better than anyone and know where the pain points are. So before you even talk about automation or RPA, you really want to dig in the investment of the culture, because that in the business process that need to be refined, because that's the most important piece. And you don't want to, put all your faith in everyone that's speaking about these buzzwords. You need to really dig in to your business and stay true to that, because I think that's where you're going to be the most value, and that's where you're going to continue to show the passion, and that's going to be very much spread like wildfire across your firm to be happy and to be excited about these new things. So with that, I will end it here. And if you have any more questions, my email here is rafael.casas@sage.com, and we have our number toll free with more information about the Sage Accounts Network, the Sage Account Solutions team, and myself. But with that, I would love to hand it over here. We'll do one area of the Encoursa poll number 2. And
Wonderful.
Liz,
Thank
if you want to go take care of that.
Thank you so much, Raphael. So this second polling question is on your screen. The question is, what are some of the best practices to consider when implementing RPA? And Raphael, one of the things that I think I heard from you so clearly is just you bring a very balanced perspective to automation, where you acknowledge it doesn't necessarily solve everything and that it can't be a siloed approach to implementation, that it's really important to think holistically. And really that like culture is so important to consider first. So thank you for sharing that with us, because we have to lead with culture before we can implement systems or bots or anything like that. So the audience is submitting their answers. All of the above is leading, so I guess I'll spoil that a bit, and we'll share the results in a bit. But as we transition, we're going to transition now to real impact solutions. And Sydney, could you just kick us off and let us know that, the history and the heart behind Real Impact Solution, and really like how you formed with your co-founders, and give us a little bit about, what you'll be sharing with us today.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Liz, for having us. And thank you to all of you accounting firms and accountants and all the businesses out there that decided to join us today. Really appreciate your time. I know it's tax season. So Real Impact Solutions formed through 2 separate journeys. There was Scale Through Automation, a separate firm, and BPM Software Solutions, which was my firm. Wilton was the CEO of Scale Through Automation, and so we got together and decided to join forces. I was basically at my company, we were doing consolidated reporting on a cloud system and helping companies really get more efficient with reporting and really organizing their business in the cloud so they can really balance out on a lot of things and really be more efficient. Scale Through Automation was already doing RPA, which was wonderful. It was a great combination. So we decided to take on a venture together, and that's how Real Impact Solution began. And as an organization, we really work with companies all throughout the nation. We do a lot of video conference calls and sharing screens and walking clients through different discovery calls. So we really help focus on the education piece. That's really important to us before we get into any type of project. And as Liz and Raphael mentioned, it's really about the culture. We're all about empowerment. We're all about employees actually having a real place in the company, and that's how we form. So we're here.
Wonderful. Well, we are so glad you're here. It looks like we've swapped the presenter controls over to your team. So go ahead and take us away. And I will mention we are having some audience questions come in. So keep those coming in, and we'll make sure to make time to answer them at the end. So with that, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, great day, everyone. This is Rob House. I'm one of the co-founders of Real Impact Solution. And the goal of this webinar is to really show you a pathway to freedom and sustainable growth for your business. And the catalyst for that could be RPA, Robotic Process Automation. Now, RPA is unlike any other technology. And during the rest of this webinar, you'll learn what makes RPA unique and why it's important to you and your practice. So RPA solutions, they are tailored specifically to you and for your business. It is not a cookie cutter type service. Getting educated with the proper automation plan will provide you with more ROI opportunities, a better process flow and solution and design, and it will improve your regulatory controls. And it's through this educational process that leaders gain a higher level of awareness and a deeper understanding of exactly how to implement automation effectively, keyword, effectively into their business. And when automation is implemented effectively, it provides you with more of your most valuable asset, and that's time. Imagine having more time to reflect, to innovate, to anticipate the future, to spot trends, to lead change. Reflecting really helps you to review and refine your plans to create those better outcomes. Innovation, it positions you to adopt the right technologies for growth. Anticipating the future allows you to spot those problems before they occur. Anticipate problems before they arise, and you will create solutions for the future. One of the biggest stories in the history of business that have to do with anticipating the future and failing to do so is Netflix and Blockbuster. Netflix anticipated that the consumer would prefer more convenience and time, while Blockbuster, on the other hand, believed that the consumer would prefer tradition. Blockbuster was unable to spot that trend. Therefore, they were unable to lead change and filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Being aware of the current trends in your industry is imperative. Okay? Now here is some research regarding the trend of RPA, since we're talking about trends. The current RPA market is valued at $1.9 billion. And it is expected to reach $10.7 billion over the next 7 years. That is a 33.6 annual growth rate percentage. Thousands of accounting firms nationwide will be impacted. If you look, we are here, 2020. Look at that projected growth. Now what if Blockbuster could have seen the future this clearly? Do you think that history would be any different? I think so. Of course it would, because there's tremendous power in data. But as we learn, there's even more power when it's used effectively. So it's been my pleasure to introduce you to RPA and some of the trends in this industry. Now my partner, Sydney Jones, will share some more insight in regards to how some of these trends will impact the compliance of your business.
Thank you, Rob, for that powerful and insightful introduction. So all of you here have to contend with constant innovation and increased regulations. These are two factors that reinforce each other. Constantly, when innovation is constantly moving forward, increased regulations are necessary because data is constantly being accessible, more easily accessible in the various industries. But specifically, particularly in accounting area, you definitely have to contend with focusing on what you need to do to stay in business. And oftentimes with increased regulations, it takes your attention away from why you're in business in the first place. And so take Capital One, for instance. There was a data breach recently in 2019, and there were over 140,000 Social Security numbers compromised, over 80,000 bank accounts exposed. And so with that, Capital One faced claims for damages, compliance costs, reputation damages, when in fact it could have been more focused on its business goals and objectives. It had to focus on all of these issues in order to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And the average cost of a compromised record, according to a data breach poll back in 2017, is around $141 per record. And so as accounting firms and accountants, you have to also have a legitimate business. So focusing on accounting standards and principles, really having financial controls in place to ensure you're PCI and SOX compliant. All of these things keep you legit as a business and protect you from violating any of these regulatory requirements. But how do we leverage this ability to have regulations in place and have best practices and standards in place, but also still focus on our why we're in business in the first place? Meaning, how do we leverage now having better structured data or some of these best practices in place to create better value for our clients, coming up with innovative services for the ever-changing needs of our customers? This is why you're in business in the first place. And also creating prosperity for your family and community, building sustainable growth and profitability that benefits your employees, your family, your community, and society at large. There's a path to this. But first, that's going to require us to standardize processes and begin to automate those standard processes. And so with the accounting industry, think about this. These standard processes that you have in place actually enable you to implement RPA more effectively than most other industries. And so when you think about all of the standard practices that even Raphael mentioned in regards to tax and obviously finance, all of these areas of the business have a lot of mundane, repetitive tasks that can be automated. And once these tasks are automated, it enables you to handle the increasing regulations. Instead of people shifting their focus to all the new regulatory requirements, you can simply tweak the rules of the automation to handle the new changes. Therefore, your employees can be freed up from those mundane, repetitive tasks and focus more on consulting and advisory roles and creating more value for your customers. Now I'm going to pass this off to Wilton. He's going to take you into a deeper dive into how this really works on the back end and go a little bit deeper into the automation. I appreciate your time and allowing me to provide you a little bit more information today, and appreciate you taking your valuable time out for this session. And I'll hand it over to Wilton. Thank you, Wilton. Or let's do a poll first, sorry.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Sydney. Excellent. We're just going to go ahead and take poll number 3. What are some of the business processes enhanced by RPA that are most relevant to you? So we'll leave this open for a bit, and we do have a question from the audience that we'll go ahead and take. Jeffrey says, RPA initiatives typically begin small focus. So we talked about that, how it's good to start with a pilot, and then they scale up over time. So the question is, how do you build good governance around your program? Do you kind of start on that limited basis, or is it better to start on the like more holistically? So what advice do you gentlemen have about governance as relates to automation?
This is Raphael. So in my experience within the governance is always starting holistically. You know, it's from the ground up, because you're going to be, you know, you're really just trying to rip apart your business and reevaluate it. It's the only way that this is going to work. So, you know, you may find there's so many areas where you don't have governance, but it's going to be something where, yeah, you start small, but you know this is a path within your business that you'll be able to grow in. So that's what's extremely important as you're holistically trying to figure out each of these segments of your business and the smaller ways where you can add automation into it. You're going to also have to make sure in parallel that your business plan and your strategy for this automation also is looking towards the future.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close this poll down. And Wilton, as we get ready for your segment, let's take a look together at these poll results. So this was a multiple answers allowed poll question, and about 40% of you say that those financial processes. So this is a lot of acronyms and abbreviations only accountants can truly appreciate. 40% of you say financial, and then about 40% of you say all of the above. And then it looks like we have some of our audience members who are focused in on more specific segments, such as accounts receivable, accounts payable, production, and inventory. But I mean, I think this really shows us, both from what Sydney and Rob presented and what Raphael presented already, that every single one of these business elements and business processes has areas where automation can really help efficiency. So thanks everyone for taking the time to respond. Really appreciate that. And we're going to go ahead, Wilton, and pass things over to you.
Well, thank you, Liz, and thank you everyone for staying with us. That's a great poll, actually, and I think that going into this section, and you already have an area where you can identify it, now you'll be able to sort of get more of a visual. You know, Raphael, Rob, and Sydney gave you great insight on the RPA and how important it is. But now it's really time to look at how it is on the user point of view and also from the development point of view. Remember, being educated on RPA, it will enable you to do more. It really will, but truly understanding how it works will get you there faster. You have to make sure that you are given the right information. The right information will be key to a smooth implementation. I think Raphael brought up earlier, you know, 40% of implementation it fails because it's not done right. So that's very key. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple of videos, give you a look from all areas, so you can get a true understanding of how RPA can impact your business, but also impact your life. Here's an overhead view of RPA.
Easy managing multiple processes all at the same time. And it's not exactly helpful when all your apps are floating around on different platforms. You're constantly struggling to keep up with all these unconnected tasks, which keeps you from focusing on higher level strategy. Do you sometimes feel like the tasks are controlling you? What if everything could be managed on a single platform? Automate, a simple solution to automating IT and business processes. Instead of an unconnected mess, with Automate you have one central connected location where you can manage all your scripts, jobs, applications, and legacy systems. You can utilize this power on premises and in the cloud. So now, you're in complete control. And how does it work? Well, Automate easily and intuitively automates your IT processes without the need for writing code. By simply dragging and dropping the more than 600 pre-built actions and activities, you can build a custom solution that aligns exactly to your needs. You can build and schedule unique tasks to be triggered by real-time events. And what's more, you can integrate and automate the extraction of data from tons of applications. Automate brings you combined power of IT process automation with application integration on one single platform, enabling you to focus on the tasks humans are best at. Tasks involving creativity and innovation, and putting you back in control. So find out more on our website, or get in touch.
All right, well, if you want to see that video again, after this, you'll have our information. It'll take you to our website. We actually have this video on our website under use cases, so you can take a look at that. But now that you sort of have an overview of what RPA looks like and a little bit more understanding of how it can help you, this is why you really want to focus spending your time on your business goal and objectives, because taking advantage of RPA, this vehicle, it'll allow you to focus more time spent there. So we know RPA can be a learning curve and delay the process. So what we've done is we want to take a deeper dive and show you how simple it is to really learn RPA and how fast it is to deploy it. Here's a video I think that will make a little bit more sense to you. It's the invoice process. Maybe you can relate to this one. So let's roll that one and let's see what it's all about.
Patrick works in the accounting department at a company that pays a lot of invoices every month to service providers. Each invoice is due within 30 days. Every person on Patrick's team spends about 16 hours a week manually processing invoices to try to meet payment deadlines. Done manually, the process starts when invoices are received electronically through a web portal. Then the accounts payable team has to manually validate each invoice. They apply more than 30 controls that check things like, are there 9 characters in the tax number? Does the provider information match the database? Is every field filled in? Is the VAT calculated correctly? Is there an existing budget assigned to this provider? With so many controls, manually processing all those invoices was taking up valuable time for Patrick and his team every week. The company ended up paying many invoices late, which meant incurring extra fees. With a robotic process automation tool like Automate, the process was made much simpler for Patrick and his company. The same Excel spreadsheet used to manually record an invoice's status can guide a bot to perform the same controls. Watch as the Automate bot runs through these checks. It goes through each control quickly, checking between the invoicing software and CRM. Then it updates the Excel file if there are no errors. If there are errors, Automate emails the appropriate team so they can take action. This company not only was able to pay their invoices on time, but every person on Patrick's team got back 16 hours per week to spend on more valuable tasks. How could your company benefit from automating its invoicing processes?
Hey there everybody! Today we're going to be showing you how easy it is to design workflows and automate. The first thing we want to do is give our workflow a name. Here we use invoice example. Once we have it named, we can open the designer and begin to design the process. Step 1 is to add a trigger, so our bot knows when it needs to start its process. It's going to look for changes in the file system and wait for the invoices to appear. those invoices are in there, we need to get the information so that we can have that for the bot to use and figure out what it needs to do. Notice how we use these green arrows to indicate that if a task is successful, it's going to keep going to the next step. You'll see later on what we do with this stuff. After we get that information, we're going to apply some controls. So we have formal controls and fiscal controls that we need to account for in this process. We'll have a nice visual designer so we can see how these tasks are flowing together. But what happens if something goes wrong that the bot didn't account for? That's where we're going to go down here and add an unexpected error task that can alert the end user in case something goes wrong. We're going to drag over a failure arrow this time, and we're going to be able to connect that to all 3 of our tasks to catch anything that goes wrong during that time, to tell our bot to stop processing that task and move on to the next. After we have those failures set up, we need to tell our bot to check to see where it is to figure out what it needs to do. So we're going to drag over this evaluation to get the status of the current values. After we do that, one of 3 things will occur. If everything has passed all of the validations, we're going to go ahead and authorize those payments. If it hasn't, we're going to catch the fiscal errors and the formal errors. But how does the bot know? That's where we're going to use a completely different type of evaluation to measure the result, as you can see us doing here. We can check for any sort of value, but here we use a fiscal error and a formal error. You can see that this drag and drop methodology in visual design makes it easy to look at your workflow holistically, see any gaps you might have in your processes, and make sure that everything's going to be completed accurately, completely, and without error. This has been a Real Impact solution, and thanks for watching.
So that amazing video presentation was created by our business partner, our solution architect, and our tech genius, Alex McDowell. He'll be on here shortly to answer some questions for the Q&A. But this is a look at a workflow completed. So that's what a workflow looks completed. And again, those videos, you can go to our website and take a look at them again and get a better understanding of how it works. We know that RPA can be a time consuming to learn. And I believe Sydney put it best, if you have the right RPA partner, it can help you educate you to really take advantage of the service and really help change your business around immediately. Understanding how to design and develop and deploy the process can keep you ahead of the curve and definitely keep you ahead of the competition. And we understand how important it is in the accounting industry, especially now. We know it's an emerging trend within your industry. So time to really understand RPA is now. Don't put this off. We encourage you to really do your research. Rob said it earlier, thousands of accounting firms are going to be impacted by this nationwide. So do your research. We're going to try to make it easy for all of our accounting partners to stay engaged, stay informed, and stay educated on RPA in every way we can. So after this next session, we're going to do a Q&A, but you can also find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on our website, and also you can email us directly. If you email us directly, we'll get back to you personally. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. Thank you, Liz, and over back to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was so cool. That's the first time I've ever seen an automation process designed right in front of us like that. So that's so cool that you were able to do that in front of the whole Encoursa audience that's with us today. So we have our 4th poll question. We are going to get into Q&A. We have some questions that are already in the Q&A box. So if you have questions that you'd like to have answered, we have about 3 to 4 minutes. So go ahead and get a few more questions out there if you have them. And this 4th poll that's up on your screen is, what is your biggest takeaway from today's presentation? So perhaps you can say you now understand some practical applications for automation. Maybe you recognize that automation really first requires well-defined business processes. Another one that, as I have been interacting with Sage and Real Impact Solutions, I'm seeing so much tangibly how automation is closer at hand than I had initially realized. Maybe you might share that with me. Perhaps that the presentation validated what you already knew. And I'd love to hear from you, if you're excited now that you've seen this presentation and it's just sparked some enthusiasm and excitement for you to embrace automation. So thank you everyone for taking the time to respond to that. We'll leave that poll open for just a bit longer, and let's go ahead and segue right into the Q&A. So we have a question from Paul. Paul is wondering, what tools are people using to implement RPA? Are these tools built into Sage? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about Automate, which was something that the Real Impact Solution team demonstrated today. So let's start with Raphael. Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective, and then we'll pass the question over to the Real Impact Solution team.
At the moment, we don't have a deep in with any RPA, but we actually are working with RIS in being a preferred provider and building out these RPA for our Sage 50, Sage Business Cloud Accounting, Sage 100 products. So that is an ability that we are working on because we know it's a major it's a major area where a lot of these firms need assistance with, not only the education but the implementation part. So that is something that we are teaming up with them on through the Sage Accounts Network, building out much more templated use cases to allow for quicker implementation. So these are things that we are absolutely working on. But as far as out of the box RPA, Sage doesn't offer that. That's why we are teaming up with RIS on this journey.
And thanks, Raphael. This is Alex from the RIS team. I'm the solution architect. Wilton kind of introduced me earlier. To kind of take that question and give you a more definite answer, Paul, we use the platform Automate, which is by Help Systems, and that's just one of a few RPA tools that are available. So it doesn't use and leverage Sage as an integrated provider, but we're able to connect into Sage and accomplish tasks within there. That's one of the major benefits of RPA is that it can utilize any system and any software that any of your employees would be using on a day-to-day basis without the need for an SDK or an API, as you would usually need to integrate with software.
Awesome. That's really helpful to know that, just for everyone who's with us today to be aware of that interaction, and that there's really a lot of room for partnership and collaboration between Sage and Real Impact Solution and your teams. Let's take, we probably have time for one or two more questions. So on the question of, we talked about standardized processes first and implement automation kind of with a pilot. So for the Real Impact Solution team, where are you seeing, what type of process is a really good successful case study for a company if someone wants to prove to their team that this can work?
Great question. I guess I can take the lead. This is Wilton. I think working with different accounting firms, I think everybody finds a different area that they want to find, but I think they have to find one that they can implement. They can implement pretty fast, but can see the value right away as well. So that way they can start understanding how it works. They can understand the language, and they can start finding areas like, okay, now I understand how to put it in this area and how to make an impact. So as they find an area where they don't have to spend a whole lot of time in right away, they can start automatically finding other areas of the business so they can start implementing RPA. So that's, wherever that is, I would say try to find that and work from there.
And then
also add to that is we partnering up with someone who's good at actually doing the discovery with you and walking you through that process, right? Finding the best practices of how you have things solidified in your organization. We help organizations find those opportunities and the return on investment. So figuring out the best way to actually calculate your ROI is very important. That way you know if it's worth even going in that direction in terms of implementation.
And just to piggyback off of that as well, Sydney, just for easy examples, the invoicing process is one we see a lot of success with, and also any sort of account notation process. Anything that you've got a team of processors working on, or really that you just don't like doing in your day-to-day that takes up a lot of your time, those are the prime candidates that you're looking at. And it's always great to work with your teams and do time studies so that you can really identify what processes are being accomplished and where time is being spent to find the best candidates.
Excellent, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. That takes us right up to the top of the hour. Appreciate the time for the Q&A. And for anyone who has additional questions, the contact information for Sage and Real Impact Solution is up on your screen. So feel free to get in touch via email or phone. Here at Encoursa, we really want to say thank you to Raphael with Sage and to Alex, Wilton, Rob, and Sydney with Real Impact Solutions for putting together this wonderful presentation and sharing with all of us today. For a few housekeeping items to close, there will be a course survey following the program. When you close the GoToWebinar control panel, that survey will pop up, and we'd love to read your feedback. For those of you who qualified for CPE credit, you'll be able to download your CPE certificate from your Encoursa dashboard an hour after the program concludes, so it's in an hour. And also, you'll be able to reference the materials and the recording later on by logging into your Encoursa dashboard. Visit us at Encoursa.com. We have great training available to CPAs and to accounting and finance professionals. Again, we really appreciate everyone for taking the time to join us today. Thanks again to Sage and Real Impact Solutions. We look forward to having you all back with us again soon. Take care.